Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live, or a new metaphor for your toolbox. Well, I'm back and I've been to the Labyrinth and I killed a Minotaur and I'm back. This is my favorite myth. In fact, even my website is tokillaminotaur.com. tokillaminotaur.com. That's my blog, and all these talks are on there. But yesterday I had a colonoscopy. And it was quite an adventure because, as you know, if you hang out with me, I have a metaphorical mind in the sense that I see everyday world, my everyday world, in terms of metaphors that point to transcendence or unity. See the idea? If you point at anything in the everyday world, it points to itself. I point to a lamp, point to a picture on the wall, I point to the board. Whatever I point to that. But what points to the whole room at the same time? In other words, everything in this room is part of the whole. But all we can see is the parts. So what's the whole? Well, of course, this too is a metaphor because you can stand over here in the corner and see the whole room. But if the world is the room, you point to everything in the world, but can you point to the whole world at the same time? You can't. You can't point to something and also point to the whole at the same time. But the metaphor does. Because that's what a metaphor does. It points to opposite frames of reference. It points to something and then it points to something else, but you have to make a leap to see the unity or the whole that the metaphor points to. So that's why Thesis in the Minotaur, I love, is a great metaphor. So I go to get a colonoscopy yesterday, and there are several labyrinths here. Now a labyrinth is something out of which you cannot get. And it's shaped as a circle. It's shaped as a mandala. And English gardens like to have one. And there are lots of labyrinth games. You can get them in a labyrinth book. And how do you get out of this thing? And, so the basic metaphor is that there's a labyrinth and there's a minotaur in it. And it creates pain in your life, so you have to go in there and get rid of the Minotaur. But how do you get out of the labyrinth? So the myth, the Greek myth, is that Ariadne, the king's daughter, gave Theseus a golden ball. Unravel it when you go in, and then follow it, and you get out. Mission accomplished. But we don't have Ariadne's thread today. Our Western world, material, modern world, just points to stuff. There's no thread to get out. You go to a therapist or a priest, but they don't get you out of the labyrinth. They just make you accommodate to it. Because in the Western world, we think this is the way it is. Everybody's in a labyrinth. So just adjust to it. Okay. Let's look at Tolle's quote to follow these Ariadne's threads. Tolle is a Ariadne's thread. All the wisdom teachings are Ariadne's threads to follow out of the labyrinth. So Tolle's today's thread is accepting means you allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling at this moment. It's part of the is-ness of now. You can't argue with what is. Well, you can. But if you do, you suffer. Okay. So I go to now what's common? Now we can use this hospital as a labyrinth because we all go to hospitals sometime or the other, or doctor's offices or whatever. And these are huge labyrinths. Usually you have to have a guide. A nurse takes you around. Even if it's a small doctor's office, you come out of the room and you don't know which way to go. It's a labyrinth. All right, so you go in there to kill the minotaur that's in you. Oh, I got this pain. Well, then you go there and the doctor hopefully kills the minotaur and then leads you out, you see. So that's kind of a metaphor. So a colonostomy is interesting because the colon is a labyrinth. You don't want to go in there. So you have to drink all this nasty stuff to clean out the labyrinth so the doctor can go in there. So he's going to go into the labyrinth to find that, to see if you have any minotaurs. And if he sees one, he'll kill it. Called a polyp. I had one. And I made a joke that says, you're probably going to send that to the lab to see if it's an alien pod. But anyway, and then he said, oh, guess what? You don't have to go in the labyrinth anymore because you're 80 years old. And I said, well, whoopee. Now that either means, now that I'm 80, I won't get colon cancer, or if I do, I'm not worth fixing. So, anyway, I came out of the labyrinth rather enjoying the high on the tail end of the anesthesia. I don't remember ever enjoying the rear end of, pun included, the rear end of anesthesia. You don't enjoy the anesthesia because you're not there. But when you come out, I was either one of the greatest comics in the world or a Zen master. One or the other. I discovered that when there's a little bit of separation between you and the world, like a little layer of oil, you know, the world is very funny. Everything is funny. It's like everyone loves Raymond. Everything is funny because you're not attached to it. As soon as you get attached to the world, it's serious. Oh, God, damn. No, this should not be happening. So let's get back to Tolle. Don't argue with the is-ness of now. Now, I love this. Don't argue with the is-ness of, what in the hell is the is-ness of now? All right, well, let's go back to the hospital. There are 3 stages in the colonoscopy, or most of the operations there. There's the preparation. You go, you sign in, they get you prepped, you meet this happy little nurse, and they're hooking you up and they're getting you into the gown and everything is fine. Oh boy, I'm all ready to go. And then they put you on the gurney in their little room and they disappear. And you just lie. There's no TV, no magazines, nothing. You're just there. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Where in the hell is everybody? Where are they coming back? Have they forgotten me? What's going on here? That's the is-ness of now. And then finally, and I had to wait. I think I must have been there an hour. And then finally they come on in. Oh, sorry, we're late. The doctor got hung up. And they wheel you in. And then you meet another set of nice nurses and you joke. And then they put the thing on your nose and the doctor comes in, all happy. Hello, I'm so-and-so. Glad to meet you. There, boom, and you're out. And then you come to, it's all over, the doctor's gone. All right? And so then you get your instructions on, you get somebody to drive you home because you're not safe, And so anyway, but I was, like I said, my humor was even better than Raymond's when I came out of that anesthesia. But the point is, if there is a point, that don't argue with the is-ness of now. Well, the is-ness of now is when you're in the hospital, and the hospital is now, and it is what it is. But notice how we argue with it. This shouldn't be this way. I'm going to go to a different hospital. Where is that nurse? They didn't hook me up right. Would you use that tape is pulling my arm? Complaint, argue. If we're not doing it outwardly, we're doing it inwardly. We're arguing with the is-ness of now. Now, if you make a little leap, you see, the now is the labyrinth. And when you argue with the labyrinth, it's like you're in a straitjacket, and the more you struggle, the more you're locked in the labyrinth. You can't get out of the labyrinth when you argue with it. The labyrinth is a double bind where if you struggle with it, it just grabs you tighter. And so you just keep going around and around and around, like on Groundhog Day, or you're on a treadmill and you think you're getting out of the labyrinth, but then suddenly you notice you're in one spot. You haven't gone anywhere because you're arguing with the is-ness of now. The is-ness of now. I just love that, the is-ness. This is Zen too. Just this, suchness, just this, the is-ness. If you argue with it, what you're doing is arguing with what is through your imagination in believing it could be different than what it is. It should be different than what it is. It shouldn't be this way. Now, isn't that insane? We watch movies on Friday night, and then we have a friend who comes over to watch the movies, and she argues with the movie. The movie shouldn't be this way. He shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. Why did he do that? This is silly. The movie shouldn't be this way. Will you shut up? It's just a movie. So we're looking at the world and we're arguing with it because it should be different than what it is. That's as silly as arguing with the movie and saying it shouldn't be. They should not have ended this way. They should have, well, that's insane. It's a movie, and first of all, you can't go back and redo the movie to suit you. So if you argue with the is-ness of now, that's insane because you're saying that the whole cosmos should not be what it is. The whole cosmos, and that's big, and everything is interrelated, so you can't change this room and not change the whole cosmos. Ever think of that? If you change one little thing in a room, you change the whole universe because everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. You change one little atom, you change the whole universe. So it has to be what it is. But we, humans, gifted with imagination, a mind that is outside of what is, we can imagine what should be, what could be. Or we look in the rearview mirror and complain about what it was. So we're either looking backwards and complaining about what happened, it shouldn't have happened that way and I'm at fault, or you at fault, or we're looking ahead and say it should be this way in the future. So we're either got two eyes like a chameleon. One eye is going past, one eye is going forward. No eye is looking on the is-ness of now. No eye is looking at and accepting what is now, you see. So when you go to the hospital, what did I do? I talked about this last night. So I'm lying there, and I just accept the is-ness of the sound. There wasn't anything particular to look at. I mean, you can lie in these rooms and focus on one little thing. Well, that certainly is an interesting lamp. Okay, and you look at that lamp, and that you talk about that to yourself, and then you go over and look. Well, there is a cabinet. I wonder what's in that cabinet. And you just go around the room trying to find something that's interesting, that relieves you of the boredom, the intolerable boredom, you see, of being in a situation that should not be that way. Well, that's where we spend most of our life, either in the Walmart line, complaining about the Walmart line, or on the vacation when we run out of charcoal, or whatever, you know. There's always something wrong. But let's get back to that hospital room and that space, that intolerable space where nothing is going on and you're suspended. Well, when you accept the isness of what is, this is a meditative practice. This is Ariadne's thread. Ariadne's thread is accepting what is. If you accept what is without argument, you get through the labyrinth. So in this particular situation, accepting what is without argument is accepting that you're stuck in a waiting room without arguing about it. This is what is, and it's okay. So I just relax and listen to the sounds in the hospital, clickety-click of the heels, talking there, a door shutting. But I'm not pointing out, oh, there's somebody talking. What is she saying? Or that's a door. I wonder where that door... No, there's no thinking about it. It's just relaxed listening. So I am just accepting the isness of now. And it was very... you can't tell how long I was there because there's no time. When you accept the isness of now, you only have time when you don't accept the isness of now. What time? This should not. How much longer I got to stay in here? 20 minutes? My God, I can't stand. This is ridiculous. Time. Time and the labyrinth go together. When you accept the isness of now, which is just accepting where you are, without judgment, without resistance, without argument, there is no time. It's just now. It's just now. So this idea here of accepting means you allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling at that moment. So, just as an example, I'm lying there listening to the sounds as sounds, not as sounds of something. You get there's a difference there. You can notice this if you try this. You're in a waiting room or something and you just relax the listening of something and you just begin to be listened as, taking in the whole thing without selecting anything with your attention. Even people talking English, it sounds like a foreign language. Because you're not interested in what they're saying, you're just interested in the sound that they're saying, which is like when you hear somebody else talking in a foreign language, you don't know what they're talking about, so you begin to be aware of the rhythms and the sound, you see, instead of what they're saying. So when you are accepting as what is, you begin to be interested in the wholeness of what is instead of the selected little things that the mind picks out of interest, you see. The whole. So the isness of the world is the whole of the world, not any particular thing that is. You see the difference? So if we want to be at home, if we want to be free of the labyrinth, we have to be able to, and this is a practice, we have to learn to relax and accept the isness of the situation. Now that doesn't mean we are passively accepting the pain of the labyrinth. Oh, I'll accept it. No, it's not an intention. It's relaxing every mental effort and just being the isness of now, which is what I'm feeling too. So if I'm feeling irritated, which most of us would do in this situation, if I'm feeling irritated that I have to wait, that I'm feeling irritated that this hospital should be more efficient. I should not have to wait here. This should not be. And I feel irritation. Well, that's what the isness of now is. The isness of now is that I'm irritated. So I notice that and I say, oh, there's the sound of people walking. There's a door slamming. And there's irritation. It's all one isness. But as soon as I identify with the irritation, I have separated myself from the situation, and now I am irritated with the situation as if I'm separate from it. And that separation of myself from the isness of now, through argument with it, is what the Buddha calls dukkha, or suffering. And we experience that suffering as negative emotions. Pain, hurt. This hospital is hurting me. You did it. Who did it? Was that nurse the cause? See what I mean? Somebody's hurt. So let's kick this down a little bit. Doggone it, I forgot my watch again, so I don't know what time it is. Okay. Excuse me. We got a few minutes, so let's take a little leap here and talk about modern world and postmodern. All right, we are in, now the modern world goes from the Middle Ages to now. But we're in transition, and this is a world in which you have the map maker. This is the scientific world, and the map, or world. When the Middle Ages broke up, the Age of Enlightenment and science, Copernicus, Galileo, and then later Darwin, all of these theories created the modern world that has created the hospitals and all of these luxuries that we have, you see. And the basic fundamental assumption of this world, the modern world, is that the map maker is separate from the map. And the map maker is the scientist. So the scientist maps the world by discovering new theories or laws that tell you what atoms and how everything fits, and then you can make air conditioners and cars because you have a map. But the scientist, the map maker, is separate. And he can argue with it, or he can draw it, or whatever, but the map maker is totally separate from the world he's mapping. This is an assumption. And it made the modern world create big machines, because you need that. The mechanic has to be separate from the machine in order to fix it. The designer has to be separate from what he's designing in order to design something. This is just assumption. We don't even inquire about that. And that's our common sense world. The common sense world now, the one we just assume, is I'm separate from the room I'm in here. I can look around here, I can design the room, I can come up with a better room, I can tear this room down, you see. But the assumption for all of that is that I'm separate from it. And that's true, because that's how you catch a bus and make stuff. But it's limited. It has limitations. And these limitations now are creating the suffering of the modern world, because we have created, like a cancer, the destruction of our own host. In other words, we have become so outside of nature that we are ignorantly destroying it. Like the Mayans, who ended their civilization because they destroyed the rainforest on which they were dependent. Or, and I think Easter Island, where those big monoliths, well, they had to cut down all the trees to get those rocks down to the ocean. And when they cut down all the trees, that ended their civilization through ignorance. So there's an ignorance in the modern world that we are now coming to face, is that the map maker is not separate from the map. We are not separate from the environment. We are not separate from the cosmos. The map maker and the map are one. And this is the great discovery of the postmodern world. The discovery that the map maker and the map are the same process. So we end up with worldviews. Now, a worldview is mind world. And it's a reality. It's a mind world, or worldview, is a reality that is perceived and felt to be real. And that's why today we have fundamentally two worldviews that are experiential realities called liberal and conservative, just to break it down. Or there's many others going on, but people live in their worldview as if it were the true whole world, and the other worldviews are false. Well, the assumption is that the worldview, so the world now is the map maker and the map. The map maker has created a map and then lives in it. Just like the painter creates a painting and then lives in it. You see, not knowing that he is living in his own creation. Well, when you wake up to that, that's like an actor. He is a method actor, and he becomes the character so perfectly that he forgets he's a character in a play. And he goes home at night and he's that character. And eventually he ends up in an institution because he can't get out of his play. And this is always the old joke about the guy standing there who's Napoleon. Or I'm Jesus Christ. And then you get two people in the insane asylum, both of whom believe they're Jesus Christ. So what do you do there? Or when you get two Napoleons there, you see? There's only going to be one Napoleon or one Jesus, so you're going to have a little conflict there. But the point is that we create a world and then live in it, and then believe that the world that we live in, which is a natural thing to do, is the one world. So the Trump view, or the conservative view, perceives and lives in a real world to them. And the liberal view perceives and lives in a real world to them. And it's really splitting right down the middle now. And it can only go one way, or two ways. This is a labyrinth, by the way, because whatever you do, you're screwed. That's a labyrinth. Lose-lose. Whichever way I turn, I'm still back in the labyrinth. And I come back, wait a minute, I was here before. I was just here 5 minutes ago. We're always back where we started. We're never getting out, you see. Because the labyrinth is a illusion that it's separate from you. So getting back to, how's my time doing here? 26, okay. The split world. I draw this little figure here, got a little split there. So let's tie this up with Tolle here before we go on. The little split here, on this part here, I have a bad feeling about this hospital. I'm really irritated about it. I shouldn't be waiting this long. And the other half of the mind says, now who's the cause of it? Well, the hospital's the cause of it. You know, somehow the hospital is making me hurt. But that little formula there, so then this is the world over there, and the world says, who, me? So the split mind, you see, has an irritation, a negativity, and it blames the world on it. So that is the same as the map maker. The map maker makes a map, and he's irritated with the way the map turned out, and he blames the map that he made for the irritation, thinking that the map is separate from him. That's nuts. So you can see how this split mind is basically forcing us, like on the edge of a pirate's plank, to step off into something that we know not what. Because everything in the split world of the map maker split from the map he makes, you see, that split is based on the assumption that I am passive in a world that is creating me. If you hurt me or somebody else hurts me, I believe that you are separate from me and you are hurting me. I'm passive now. I'm a victim. So the insanity of it is that the map maker feels he's a victim of the map he created. And now he suffers. You see? And when you translate that map into the world, you can't change the world. You can change little things, but you can't change the whole world, and everything's interrelated. So, unable to change the world that we believe is the cause of my suffering, I suffer eternally. Always arguing with the world that won't change to fit me, because I don't see that I and the world are one, yet two. This is what Krishnamurti always says: the observer and the observed are one. The map maker and the map are one, yet they're two. So you can catch a bus and make stuff and do things and go to the hospital. And the hospital can be built so you can go to it. All these things require a separation between the map maker and the map. But at the same time, they're one. And if we forget the oneness, we forget the is-ness. The is-ness is the oneness. The is-ness of the world is the totality of the world all at once. And that is what is. It is what it is. It can't be any different than what it is. But you can still go to the hospital and get fixed. You see. So, we're in transition right now to a postmodern world. And we can find this postmodern world is quantum physics, is the product of the postmodern world. So quantum physics says that the scientist creates what he finds in his experiment by the design of the experiment. So if you create an experiment to see what an electron is, and the electron looks like a particle, you say, an electron is a particle. That's what it is. But then if you change the experiment, the electron becomes a wave. That's what it is. But it's both. So it's either going to be one or the other. How can it be a particle and a wave at the same time? How can it be, ta-da, my Gestalt picture, how can it be an old woman and a young woman simultaneously at the same time? Well, it can't. You either see a young woman or an old woman. You either see a particle or a wave. What is it that is, how can they both be the one yet two? Well, it is one. That's the one, yet it is at the same time two. The is-ness is the is-ness of now is the one. There is only one now. There's only one is-ness. Yet we perceive it as this and that, as me in the world. But this oneness, the is-ness, this Ariadne's thread, this Dharma, has to be awakened. It has to be tickled. It has to be nudged. Wake up now. Wake up now. And that's what the postmodern world is all about. It's waking up. Wake up now. Wake up now. This world you see has been created by you. If you see that, you can be free from the labyrinth. You won't be stuck in it. Wake up now. So, anyway, let's leave it with that, and thank you so much for dropping in, and I'll see you at Martini time, which is, almost as good as that anesthesia.